those who live it. I'm your host, Renee Kranz. In the studio with me today, I have Scott and Jackie Jucht. I'm going to say that last name right.
There you go. Yeah, you got it.
It's a tricky one. So Scott and Jackie are here to tell us, they have many, many beautiful stories about their faith. We're going to pick out one in particular, a little bit about their conversion story, or Scott's conversion story, and mostly around a healing that Scott experienced that Jackie had at least some to do with, and a saint blessed who just was canonized 2 days ago? 3? Wasn't it just this last week?
I don't think he is yet. Is he?
Okay, well, maybe it's coming.
It's coming.
It's
Yeah.
coming.
It's
Okay,
coming.
that's right, 2025.
May 24th, second miracle was
Yes, Carlo Acutis will be involved here
correct.
very shortly. So, okay, Scott, will you start and just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the two of you, where you came from, that kind of stuff.
All right. So a little bit about my story. So I grew up Baptist.
Okay.
A very faith-filled, loving family, parents. I thought they shared a brain when I was growing up. So my parents had a very dramatic impact on me. My Baptist faith had a very dramatic impact on me. Baptized when I was 8 years old, but God has always been a part of my life and a part of my walk. Jackie and I have been married 3 years now.
Nice.
I did get married in 1994. I had 2 wonderful, amazing daughters from that marriage. It did end in divorce. So that is also, a part of my story. I've worked in IT and doing computer support for about 30 years now.
Okay.
So that's another tie that I have with Carlo.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Yeah. So
Are you did you grow up here in
grew
the
up
area?
in Sioux Falls.
Okay,
Graduated
both of you?
from Lincoln High School.
No, Jackie's from somewhere else.
I'm from a small village south of Mitchell.
A small village.
Yes,
Which one?
ma'am. Delmont.
Oh, I've heard of Delmont.
Yeah. No Catholic church there.
No.
Probably a bit anti-Catholic, I'll be quite honest.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
There was very few of us who were Catholic. We had to go to a different church outside of the area.
Sure.
So.
And you grew up Catholic?
I did. My dad was a convert to the
Okay.
Catholic faith.
Lovely.
So,
So 2 South Dakota kids
yeah.
grew up apart and met each other later. All right. So, Scott, I want a little bit about your conversion story. I don't want to dominate our time with that because I want to hear about the healing experience, but I know you had a really beautiful conversion experience too. So can you give us the super short version of that?
Okay, and that's
really
I know.
That's challenging. It absolutely is.
We may have you back for the long version of that because a lot of people love it.
To make a long story short, divorced, full custody of both my daughters, and searching for more with the Lord. I thought, divorce was very, very hard for me. It was a very, very hard decision because of my faith. But it was a decision that I came to as it needed to happen.
Sure.
So I was very focused on live small, serve big. Lord, how can I get more of you in my life? Taking care of my daughters was a big focus. And then I met this gal, and we started having conversations. Those conversations ultimately were significantly about faith.
Yeah.
She told me 3 key things right away. One of them was, I will never love a man more than I love Jesus. I will never leave the Catholic Church. And you and I can't be anything more than friends unless you have an annulment.
Oh, yes.
Which all those 3 things, right, most men have run away.
Right.
But he didn't. He would ask me things that most people growing up in a town that was critical of my faith. I assume when he'd ask me questions about my faith, he was being critical, but he was not. It was very clear. He was asking.
Yeah.
Just asking. And so I was very careful how to respond. And when I told him these things, I thought, okay, this is the end. Because, he doesn't even know what an annulment is.
Right.
And we're friends, and I don't know why, but I felt like I need to tell him, I think you would qualify from what I've heard.
Right. Right.
And that was really it. He didn't know anything about the Eucharist. He didn't know, I didn't. But if I could continue, we would chat, and then he'd say, what are you doing after work? And we were just friends, and I'd say, I'm going to daily mass. And he's like, you can go to church every day? Like,
You're like,
yeah,
yeah,
I can,
do.
and I do. So I'm that kind of girl, that kind of like, but he goes, can I join you? Can I meet you there? And that's how it started.
Yeah.
He started going to daily mass, which is a beautiful, intimate, right? And after each mass, I would say the same thing to him.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Ah,
And then that would open dialogue.
that's a beautiful way to do that.
Because I'm not here to make someone Catholic.
Right. It's not your job.
That's not my job. But he was definitely asking questions. So
Yeah.
that's how it started. And that was several months of that.
Yeah, well, if I can just interject, I did, before we got into several months, I did a month into this discussion and talking and spending time with her and realizing just how different and special she was. I made an appointment to meet with Father Terry Weber, and I have to find out if I even qualify for an annulment,
right. Yep.
or we need to separate this a little bit more, because I had
Sure.
no intentions of necessarily getting married again. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know what God was doing here, but I need to talk to a priest and find out, about this. Father Terry was fantastic. There's a whole story about that, which we'll skip over. But
Sorry,
anyways,
Father Terry.
I started that annulment process, and Jackie and I had several, again, spiritual discussions where we said we're just going to be intentional spiritual friends,
Yeah.
and that's what our relationship is going to be. But through the process of going to daily mass, through the process of meeting Father Terry and going through and starting that annulment process, the healing, the welcoming that I felt was overwhelming. And at the same time, I couldn't, as a Baptist, I couldn't go to church every day. And Jackie listened to daily mass every morning, right? And so the discussions were dynamic. The discussions were life-giving. And I'm a very, very prayerful person. I have a history of once a year going on a hike, getting up into the mountains, praying at 13, 14,000 feet, and just being away from everything. So there was an evening, I asked her what she was doing. She said she was going to adoration to pray. And I think you just said I'm going to pray at church. And I thought, I don't want to be in any kind of a relationship that doesn't involve the Lord.
Right.
But to have an opportunity, I asked her, I said, well, is it something I can come to? And she was a little bit taken back, I think, for a moment. But she said, yes, you can absolutely come, but I need you to understand this is my time for prayer. I'm not going to sit by you. We're not going to be talking together. This is not, you do you. I need to do my own thing. So we went to adoration that first time. And afterwards, you said,
Questions, comments, or concerns? Because again, you walk in. I'm very thankful. St. Michael's a perpetual adoration, which is unique, right?
Yep.
And I've been doing that even before I moved back to South Dakota. So for now it's 25 years, right? I've been doing it. So very, very important to me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, we're stepping into a room. He's gonna think I'm crazy, like I'm staring at this thing, because we not had that conversation yet.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
so when she asked me that, and this is the first part of our conversation, well, I'll get a little emotional. I do every time I tell the story because it was so overwhelming. She asked me that, and I said, what is it about that room? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, what is it about that room? The only time I've ever felt like that when I prayed was on a mountaintop. What is it about that room? And that started
Is your communion different than mine?
a much deeper conversation.
Sure.
So
Sure.
So, fast forwarding through a whole bunch of stuff.
And we call it God instances,
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
happen you cannot deny.
Right.
It was very clear, okay, there's something supposed to happen here. And then he also then inquired about RCIA,
Sure.
which I had no idea that St. Michael's had the summer course,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was
it's awesome.
like, I'm not kidding you, a week after that happened.
Oh, wow.
Well, you're jumping ahead.
I
That
am
was the
jumping.
first time at Adoration.
Excuse me, yes.
April 24th.
me.
April 24th, we were
He
in
knows
Adoration
dates.
together. And we were in Adoration together, and I was saying the most intense prayer that I think I've ever said in my life, looking at the Eucharist and just crying out to the Lord, if this is really you, I need you to reveal yourself to me. I need to know that this is you, if this is what you're calling me to. And as I'm going through this prayer, she handed me daily bread.
One of the devotions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyways, I read through it. It was everything about the men on the road to Emmaus not recognizing Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
I looked up and I knew it was, and I started crying so incredibly hard. I had to get up and leave the room for a little while, trying to compose myself, came back in and just completely lost it again. At that point, I knew I had to be Catholic. I had to look into this more. I started talking to Father Terry. He said, we got an RCA class
Next
starting
week?
There you
next
go.
week.
So that's how it started, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
so August 25th, 2019,
That's when you started.
I joined the
You joined the
church.
church.
Wow.
The summer program. So I got in,
Nice.
in the beginning of May. I'm still going through the annulment process at that time. We still don't know that we're anything more than intentional spiritual friends.
No.
But I needed to be Catholic.
Yeah.
This is where I need to be. I need the
Yeah.
fullness of the church. I need to be home.
That's
And
a
so-
great story.
Yeah.
I
So
love it.
we skipped over a lot of parts.
I
but-
know, I'm
But
sorry.
that is the conversion story.
It's like the
and I know
shortest
we're-
conversion story
is.
ever, right? For
Yeah.
you
He learned
guys.
that way, right? He learned about so many things about the faith,
Yeah.
and including saints,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That was not.
Oh,
I
yeah,
learned a
that's not
lot.
part
I
of
learned a
Baptist at
lot,
all, yeah.
right? From and I'd ask him because we never. That's something we, and every year I picked a theme in 2024. I'm going to back up. Last year in November, St. Michael's took a pilgrimage to Italy, and we're very good friends. Shout out to Deacon Tim and Julie
Oh,
Dickus.
yes. Uh-huh.
They were our couple. I've known Julie all my life, but anyway, they went on their pilgrimage like a week or two, maybe a month before we went with St. Michael's, and they mentioned they got to see Carlo exposed in Assisi, and we're like, we're going to Assisi. I'm sure we're going to go there.
Yeah.
We're going to see him, right? And we talked a little bit about it, not a lot about that. I knew of him in his Eucharistic miracles and display and website and stuff. I knew about him. But so when we took that trip in last November of 2023, it was not on the plan
Right.
to go see him.
Oh.
We were in Assisi, which everyone should go to Assisi.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Father Tom Hartman was with us, and we realized our tour guide was not going to take us there.
Oh.
And
you're
we're like, and he said, what? And so him and also another friend of ours on the trip said, when we're done with the day, we're going to the hotel and we're directly taking a taxi to come back up here.
great.
And that is what we did, just the four of us. And it was very intimate.
Yeah.
No one was there. It was beautiful. If you don't know, Blessed Carlo is exposed in St. Francis's home parish he grew up in, which our priest, Father Tom, is a devotion of St. Francis. And there he is, like just unbelievably peaceful looking.
Preserved,
And we sat there and there was a bunch of prayer cards, right? And of course, grabbed all the English versions and started touching them he's not a saint yet.
Right.
Right. But I started following Father Tom, touching all of them to his casket, whatever you want to call it.
And we had learned a whole
Oh,
lot
yeah.
more about Carlo.
And we,
It was an amazing thing. And so for me, a 15-year-old boy telling his mom that I have no fear of death because I've never done anything in my life that wasn't honoring to God, it was just a real draw to me. And then
Yeah.
what he did with computers and programming and
Yes.
and then my
kindred
experience
spirit.
with the Eucharist,
Yeah.
and him putting together all the Eucharistic miracles. I mean, it was just right away, that was very important for me and for her to go.
We came back and we taught religious ed last year, and we made it a point to bring up videos. We watched a lot of form.
Yeah.
Just there's a lot out there on him.
Yeah.
And wanted the kids to see like this young, right now, right? Not. I mean, he died a few years ago, but what he did and what his love and so we've had and those prayer cards. I think I had 10. You gave out a couple to your boys who wanted, but we're very selective,
Very protective. You
protective
bet.
of those cards, right? Now we don't believe in voodoo or any of that. What does it mean? Like, we can ask people who we know are in heaven to pray for us, right? Go directly. You're right there, Jesus. So we believe that. That was our theme then for 2024, saints in 2024. And I said, we're opening ourselves up because we know saints suffer.
Right.
So we're opening up ourselves to that.
Yep. And so
you have a healing experience, and this is where you're
This is
going,
where
I
we're here.
assume.
Yep, that's what
That actually is connected to Carlo. So we've got about 5 or 6 minutes.
okay. I'll try to
Go.
get through it as quick as I can.
Yes.
So on May 23rd of this year at 11:48
This just
a.m.
happened not that long ago.
Right. I was hit by a car riding my motorcycle. Didn't see the car at all. I'm flying through the air, land on the ground. One important thing for me and just in where this story goes is I never ever have prayed for healing. In the beginning, everything was about give me the strength to deal with this. But as I was laying on the ground in the street with multiple fractures and open bleeding of my leg and all of that, the only thought that I had during that whole experience was, Jesus, is this what your leg felt like as they nailed you to the cross? Right? And so I had a tremendous peace even in the beginning. The thing is that that experience and then going through the surgery and everything like that, and then being in a trauma unit
For 6 days.
in the trauma unit, it's like, okay, Lord, just give me the strength. Whatever this is going to be, because initially they were talking amputation.
Right.
Then they were talking multiple surgeries, skin grafts, all the different things
A lot of suffering.
that is coming with this.
Yeah.
And I just, whatever your will is, Lord, whatever. But the 4th day, up in that trauma ward, nurse practitioner who had been with me since came into ER, came in and she wanted to do some tests on my foot. Just, can you wiggle your toes? Can you move your foot to the left, to the right? Can you push your foot down? Can you lift your foot up? And being a very active person, I wanted to know what I'm going to be able to do, what I'm not going to be able to do. And I tried lifting my foot, and I could not do it. And as she was working with me and we were going through it, I came to tears because no matter how hard I tried, I could not lift my foot. And even I think the level of effort that I was putting into it brought her to tears. And she started telling me about, we don't know what these injuries take time.
Right.
Nerves can rebuild, right? It's too early to tell. But even if you do have this thing called drop foot, where you can't lift your foot, there's prosthetics that we can get, special shoes, things that can help you with that. And so we're talking about that. That's at 7 a.m.
We have 1 minute left, right?
At
I came
About
in.
3 minutes.
I came in an hour or so later. I went home at night, and I realized I need to take one of those cards. It's our turn. What am I doing, right? And that week was the week his second miracle happened. Literally, it was in the news that week.
Wow.
the 24th.
He was
So I
active
was
and-
hit the
Cannot make
23rd.
that up.
Yep.
And I slid it. He had this big contraption on his foot, and I just slid it, and his face was sticking out on his foot just a little bit. And our nurse practitioner came in. She goes, Carlo.
She knew.
She knew, Catholic woman. He goes, not only that, but watch what I can do.
So as soon as she had put Carlo's card in my boot and we said a little prayer asking for his intercession, I lifted my foot.
And lifting means pulling it, moving
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
it.
amazing.
She saw that, and she started crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That same day, I have to bring up a couple other. Father Tom came and he says, the one who was with us, because I'm not surprised.
Right.
We also had Julie, Deacon Tim and
Yeah.
Julie have also a relic of Carlo.
Carlo.
They brought that also. And we also have a gentleman at St. Michael's, his dad has a first class relic
Yep.
that brought, and we had in with that
Yeah.
also. So
Yeah.
is he completely healed? Is everything healed?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No. It's still,
Yeah.
there's still, but the movement was not expected.
Yes.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Yep. And that was actually how I wanted to just kind of close this, because we talked a little bit before we started, Scott. I think we have to remember that, first of all, we should ask for healing in our lives. We shouldn't be afraid to do that, and also ask to be able to handle the suffering.
Yes.
But that a healing doesn't always mean everything's completely gone and totally right. Healing might take over time, and that's okay.
Yep.
I've experienced that myself. Several in the building have experienced that it's a healing over time. It's a healing. But
Right.
they all work in different ways. So we shouldn't hesitate to ask, and we shouldn't be disappointed if things aren't completely right immediately, because it's coming.
Yeah.
If you ask and you're sincere, and the saints are there to help us, to
Amen.
intercede for us. So
Amen.
I know you had to really shorten that.
Yeah.
I'm so
Sorry.
sorry. No,
Sorry.
you did great
Okay.
getting it all in. We might just have to have you back and get some more details about some of those stories. So thank you so much for coming in.
Oh,
I really
absolutely.
appreciate it. You guys are a beautiful couple, and what a great way to start your lives together as spiritual friends first.
Yes.
So very
Yes.
cool story. Thanks, you
Amen.
guys.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. If you haven't found us already on social media, you can find us at Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube at SF Diocese. That is it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.